Ottawa at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. I'd like to acknowledge and thank our Member of Parliament, Dean Allison from Niagara West. He was instrumental in getting this room and getting this meeting. This meeting is the culmination of a lot of effort of a lot of different groups, and it is 5 months in the making. And Warrant Officer James Topp is the first person from the Canadian public to get a meeting of this nature. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Warrant Officer James Topp.
Thank you. Thank you for attending. I know you have busy schedules. This is excuse me. Thank you for attending. I know you have busy schedules, and I greatly appreciate your presence here. As you're probably aware, I sent letters out to your offices back in the end of March, early April. And just for, because this is the second session, I'm just going to reiterate the contents of those letters for anybody who might be watching, who wasn't able to watch earlier this morning remotely. So, as Tom had said, I have marched from Vancouver to, at this point in time, Deep River, Ontario, or just west of Deep River. Over 4,000 kilometers. I'm approaching Ottawa. I will be arriving on June the 30th. And the reason why I decided to initiate this march is a form of protest against government mandates, federal government mandates that were imposed on the federal government workforce that required as a condition for employment a vaccination or to disclose your vaccination status or some other medical procedure, which I feel is impinging on our personal lives in a way that I disagree with, even as a federal government employee. So I initiated this protest march to speak out about that issue. And then I came to realize that I was not the only one in that position. And I over the course of a couple of months, I came to realize that there was many other Canadians similarly affected. And I took it upon myself to speak on their behalf. As it stands right now, because I have appointed myself to this task, I asked myself the question, is that what, I should be doing? Is it my responsibility? And I feel it is, because the number of folks that I have met since the beginning of this back in February till now is numbering into thousands, and they have all said to me, thank you for what you're doing. This is very important. And the number of folks who have come to me and have had something intelligent and brought up good reasons why I should not be doing this remains at zero. So I continue on my journey, and I'm also speaking out on behalf of those members of the federal government who, because they were threatened with the loss of their jobs, or told that they will be placed on leave without pay, like I am right now from my public service position as a civilian with the RCMP. They accepted or had to submit to this procedure or had to disclose their vaccination status. And I am speaking on their behalf because there is a level of anger and discontent there that really needs to be addressed by the federal government. So, in addition to that, when I say I'm speaking on their behalf, I'm speaking also for a number of folks in a number of different federal government departments, including the armed forces, because I am also in the process, or was anyway, until I'm told otherwise, being administratively released on item code 5F. And that's what I was told of November of last year, which is one of the reasons why I initiated this protest march. So I put the letter out, I asked for your attendance, and here you are. Thank you very much. Once again, I was asked early on, what exactly am I going to do when I get to Ottawa? So those of you in attendance now know that I'm not here to bang the table. I'm here to have a constructive conversation about the way forward. I'm not here to dissect all of the reasons why we got here. I'm here to find a way out of this situation that we're in. In another letter I sent your offices, I discussed what I am calling the 3+1 R's, which I have since relabeled as 3 R's equals repair. So what's going to happen is I'm just going to briefly speak to these R's, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Paul Alexander to speak to his knowledge of the one of the R's I'm going to talk about is repealing, and I need him to use his knowledge and experience of the past 2.5 years to kind of address the issue of repealing mandates, because what we're seeing now is this quote unquote suspension. And I don't think suspension is going to fix or help anything. So what I would like is if everybody can just stand by while I just list out the 3 R's. And then I'm going to turn it over to Paul. So the first one is repealing mandates, eliminating COVID vaccination, eliminating vaccine passports, eliminating requirements for vaccinations for travel, protecting our most vulnerable, and ensuring the healthcare system can serve the sick and not serve as an excuse for the violation of civil liberties. My second R is reinstatement of employees who have been let go or who are on leave without pay. And I would like to see that happen at the federal, provincial, and municipal government levels. And I'd also hoping that this action by the federal government encourages the private sector to also rehire their employees who were let go. In addition to reinstatement, I would like to see keep schools open and prohibition of lockdowns. And finally, my third R is restitution. So restitution is fairly simple. Compensate all suspended or dismissed employees for lost wages. So right now, these are the 3 R's. If you add them together, it equals repair. Early on in this journey, I noticed that the folks that I am encountering, it became more and more evident that their issue was not so much about mandates anymore. It was their overall intense dissatisfaction with the actions of the federal government. They feel the federal government is inflexible, intractable, and unresponsive to their needs. And I believe this needs to change. In addition, there were many folks who I encountered who wanted to support this journey, and they were afraid to do so because they thought they were going to have their bank accounts frozen. If we can encourage the federal government to add these 3 R's up, equals repair, then we're going to go a significant distance into repairing our relationship. And by that, I mean the Canadian public relationship with its federal government. I have encountered more and more folks along this journey who feel that it's time for them to leave the country. They want to go and live in the woods, and they want to disengage from society. And I do not believe that is the best way forward for this country. So if we can go forward, meet these 3 R's, and then talk about repair. And when I say repair, we're talking about repairing the divide that has been created. And I am reaching out with an open hand without holding grudges, casting judgment, or calling into question anybody's decisions. So by having this conversation, I already think that we are establishing some kind of repair. I've been able, with the help of my team, of course, show that with enough effort and perseverance, you can get these kind of meetings happening. So those are my 3 R's, 3+R's that equal repair. Now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Paul Alexander, because when we talk about repealing, in light of the various suspensions that are going on right now, with regards to travel restrictions and civil servants being called back to work, I think it's important that he weighs in with his expertise and his experience with what has happened over the last 2.5 years to kind of speak to why we need to be a full removal of all mandates.
Thank you very much, James, can you guys hear me? Yes. So, well, I mean, we had this session this morning, and just briefly, my background training is in epidemiology and evidence-based medicine from U of Toronto, Oxford. I also did graduate master's training in York University. I did my doctorate in evidence-based medicine, McMaster, under Dr. Gordon Guyat, who founded EBM. I also did a certificate program at Johns Hopkins in 2001 in biological warfare and bioterrorism, and how we weaponize pathogen and deliver in a small city such as Baltimore, and how we will respond epidemiologically and from a public health point of view. So I bring all of that background into play. I work for the World Health Organization at different points, Pan American Health Organization. I was a pandemic advisor to them at the beginning of this pandemic in the area of evidence-based, evidence synthesis, etc. So I have a lot of background. I worked for the Infectious Diseases Society of America for 3 years, very recently as their guideline development training their clinical doctors and surgeons in how to develop clinical practice guidelines for treating their patients. I worked for the government of Canada over a 12-year period in various capacities, but principally as an epidemiologist. You should know I was posted away to South Asia when I joined the government of Canada in an infectious disease program international, CEDA funded, with the control of tuberculosis, multi-drug resistant TB, and HIV. I was posted to the nations of India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Maldives, Sri Lanka. My job office was in Kathmandu, Nepal, in the sub-Canadian embassy there, etc. I worked for the World Health Organization in the regional office in Copenhagen, Denmark, etc. So I bring a lot of COVID background from the beginning when we were trying to understand COVID globally in Italy, in China, etc. I was very involved with various governments across the world to advise them. And I'm also involved with the early treatment experts, McCullough, Harvey Risch, Zev Zelenko, etc., Ursula Ladapo, in developing that early treatment program where we apply early treatment in that first 2-week window when viral replication in COVID is at its highest, taking place, peaks at around 7 to 8 days, where if we intervene with antivirals, at that period, we could arrest the virus so that you don't go on to the second stage, which is the florid pneumonia, the hyperinflammatory cytokine storm phase, where people degenerate, etc. You need corticosteroids at that point, as well as the third phase, which is the antiplatelet, anti-blood clotting phase, where the reality about it is COVID has emerged more of a blood clotting disorder and less of a respiratory illness, in the sense that persons who die principally of end-stage COVID, the evidence has shown is because they have microthrombi and clots in their lung, and they need aggressive blood clotting treatments such as heparin, warfarin, high-dose aspirin, etc. So I'm part of that with Dr. McCullough. We've written those papers, those treatment algorithms. If you check, I am the first author or the second author on many of those papers. So I'm very thankful to James. I've been honored. I'm half of James, or even 10% of somebody like James. I have deep admiration and respect for this person. Similar for Tom. These guys served. I wish I had the opportunity. My life took a different path in the sense I came from a developing country. So I had to bury myself in school to try and make my life. But these are the type of people who make sacrifices with the police, the military, etc., who really must look up to. I want to say it this way. The head of FAC, Public Health Agency of Canada, Epidemiology Division, told us that they don't have the data to support vaccine mandates, these mandates, as well as Transport Canada. I believe that's out there in the public space. Now, how could the head of FAC not have the information to support the vaccine mandates, yet the government has implemented them? How could the government offices such as the PMO, whomever in government made those policies, if the head of epidemiology of FAC and those public health officials did not have this information. On what basis, on what science did the government implement these policies, these mandates? That's a very, very serious question. I would also like to ask another question to Canadians. The Canadians must ask the government today, because it's the same question that the United States, the population, must ask and continue to ask, which is this. Alex Azar gave liability protection to the vaccine developers in about February, March 2020. So they absolved all of the vaccine developers and all of the players from any liability. Yet the only people who are liable are the vaccinees and the children who get these vaccines. Similarly, here in Canada, we have some sort of no-fault scheme set up. That is something that the Canadian population must press its government to figure out. How come? Why? If the Prime Minister of Canada and his government or any of the MPs who voted on these issues are that confident in these vaccines, why do you need some sort of liability protection, some shield? If you are that confident, put that liability protection on the table, bring it to the discussion, and be prepared to move it. Stand by the vaccines if you think it is safe. Don't mandate it to the population and to the children when you have protection. And if they are harmed or they die from the vaccines, then there's nothing. There's no way that people could go into a court to get a proper compensation for their loss. That's a very serious discussion that we must have here. Look, I said earlier and I'll say again, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. What I meant by that is all my children, including myself, everybody in my family has taken all of the vaccines that we get to go to school, etc. The polio, the measles, all of them. But not this vaccine. Because I made an informed decision for myself. I weighed the benefits and the risks. This vaccine was not properly tested. This vaccine has shown itself to be ineffective. I made the decision based on my health. The data showed us, CDC data, that persons 70 years old and below, if you are at low risk, if you are a healthy person, from day one, we knew this by around the end of March 2020. If you are 70 years old and below, this is CDC data, and you have no serious underlying medical condition, that your risk of survival is almost 100% if you bump up against COVID. So we knew that. We knew that you were not a candidate for any vaccine. We knew that. So the question then becomes, why did we mandate these vaccines? These particular vaccines. These vaccines were not properly tested. You need 12 to 15 years to develop a vaccine from conception to arm. Yet under Operation Warp Speed, they were brought in a matter of months. They were not properly safety tested. And then our government's carte blanche adopted them. We adopted vaccines, and the Canadian population has to question this. And I know James is coming at you trying to heal the society and the way forward. I'm trying to give you a little bit of what you did not get, because the news did not cover this properly. You got a biased, one-sided set of information. And I'm trying to give it to you in a way you never got it. If you run a trial for a vaccine, it's very simple. I'm breaking down the complexity. If you run a study that needed 15 years so that we could properly look at the safety signals as they unfold, and this is how we do it all the time for a drug, a vaccine, a medical device, but you boil it down to 5 months, how do you think I'm going to see those safety signals? If the baseline risk of a condition, let's say myocarditis, is 1 in 5,000 in the population, that's a baseline risk. Yet you conducted a trial, Pfizer and Moderna, and you brought it to me and said, I ran 1,500 people. Well, then how could that event turn up? You needed at least 5,000 people if the baseline risk was 1 in 5,000. So you deliberately, the vaccine developers deliberately undersized and shortened the duration so that the safety events cannot turn up. And then they publish the paper and declare this vaccine is safe. And then our government says, well, they said that the vaccine is safe. The FDA said it's safe. They granted an EAU, and our government, Health Canada, which should be our regulatory oversight to protect Canadians, they are supposed to run their own regulatory oversight studies. They just adopted these vaccines and carte blanche applied it to Canadians and said, well, they've gotten an EAU, so it is safe. They said it is safe. But how could they even know it is safe? I just explained to you. They undersize it. They shorten the duration of follow-up. They use all sorts of wonky, flawed methodologies that when we look at it, these studies would never, ever pass scientific scrutiny. So I'm trying to explain to you that the vaccines today, James March is a very serious thing because we've come now, we've been 2.5 years almost in this pandemic. What do we see today? We've seen that Herbie et al. From Johns Hopkins published a paper showing that all of the lockdowns failed across the world, including everywhere in Canada, failed. Public Health Agency of Canada or Health Canada could never tell you that any lockdown was successful in Canada. We closed businesses. We sent people home for no reason. The lockdowns never worked. That's a serious discussion we must have. Why, when we told them, I published, I was in the media, McCullough was in the media, Bhattacharya, Gupta, Kuldoff, we all went to the media and we said, this is why it's going to fail. It's failing now. You need to stop it. Yet our government in Canada, in Ontario and Alberta, hardened the lockdowns. They didn't listen to us. They kept the schools closed longer. They closed it harder. And they suffered children. We looked at every mask mandate. We plotted all of the graphs. There is nowhere in the entire world, nowhere, none in Canada, none in America, where any mask mandate worked. Zero. In fact, when you look at the graphs, every time they implemented a mask mandate, the infections went up. So it failed. Everything failed. And then they told us, you know what? We're going to now bring this vaccine and bring us out of this. So you had countries like Australia and New Zealand locking down airtight. China locking down airtight. What are you seeing today? They can't even move to open. China with 1 or 2 cases, zero COVID policy. Why? Because China knows they locked down too long and too tight. They're in a lot of trouble. Australia's in a lot of trouble. Because if infections is their benchmark, I said, we have a problem, they're going to have to lock back down. It hasn't worked. It's failed. We told them in the beginning, do not lock the society down. We knew 2,500 years ago in the Athenian plague, 2,500 years ago, how you deal with outbreaks, how the people who got exposed would recover and they would go out and get the bodies. They would tend to the sick and they weren't getting infected. We understood natural immunity 2,500 years ago from stuff that we have written in stones. Yet they didn't listen to us. We showed them a study, 100 years natural immunity. We showed them a study in CIDRAP that showed that they had a group of people alive in 2010, 2008, 2010, who were infected with the Spanish flu almost 100 years before. And when they looked at these people's blood, they found an immunological response to Spanish flu 100 years past. We wrote about it. We told Howard Nguyen, Theresa Tam, and Fauci and Birx, we said, look, we are showing you natural immunity is bulletproof. It is lifelong and durable. No vaccine could supersede natural immunity. None, ever. Yet they told you, Public Health Agency of Canada told you that this vaccine is going to take you out of this pandemic and it's safe and it's effective. What did you find out? It's failed. It doesn't work. Everybody who's gotten vaccinated is getting infected and you will keep getting infected. Why? If you want this pandemic to go on for 100 more years, I want you to listen to how I'm telling the public. if you want this pandemic to go on for 100 more years, and every 2 months you want another infectious variant, subvariant, you keep this vaccine program going exactly the way it is. Don't change anything. Because they know that if you bring a suboptimal, non-sterilizing vaccine to the table, you can only drive natural selection. Darwinian natural selection will select the most infectious variants, and every 2 months a new infectious variant will emerge. What else could happen? Well, Gerd van den Bosch, who I work with, Mike Eden, who I work with, they have said, they've been on paper saying, hold on, America, hold on, Canada, hold on, UK, hold on, Australia, because it's not just about those infectious variants. It's not just about vaccinated people getting infected. It's about we may drive the emergence of a highly pathogenic, highly virulent, highly lethal strain. We are calling on the global community. We have been calling on Tam and Nu to understand if they continue this vaccine program, if they move to vaccinate our low-risk children who have potent, natural, innate immunity, and they know it. That's the problem. They know that children are largely safe, children are at such low risk, and children do not need these vaccines. Nu and Tam knows this. The government knows this. Do not, I am saying to the Canadian people, I am not getting into people's credentials, and I don't want to be negative on anyone. I am trying to say that a child has such low risk, and this is the immunology, this is the data. I am trying to explain to you that no child in Canada, no healthy child in Canada warrants or should get these vaccines. None, not one. Dr. Marty Makary of Johns Hopkins, he's one of the top epidemiologists in America. I work with him. He's my friend. He was soliciting the CDC to give us the data on those deaths in children that you said died from COVID. The CDC would not release the data. So Makary and his team went deep inside and they found it, they got it. They've looked at every single child. No doubt, the death of a child is the most devastating thing that can happen. But they wanted to understand what is the risk. They found that in America, not one, I'm not talking about 10 or 4 or 12, not one healthy child in the entire United States from the beginning of this pandemic, over 2 years to today, has gotten infected with COVID and died. Not one healthy child, I'll say it again, got infected with COVID and died. We looked at the data in Sweden, Ludvigsen et al., New England Journal of Medicine. He looked at 2 million Swede kids, 2 million, from 0 to 16 years old. They found not one child died of COVID in the entire pandemic. And those, Sweden had no lockdowns and no mask mandates, none. We looked at the data in Germany, same. No healthy child died of COVID. The data is clear across the world. Healthy children, normal children, with a proper, potent, innate natural immunity do not need these. Had you bought from me, I'm talking to Canadian people, like how Nu and Tam went to the government or the provincial Kieran, or I don't know his name, and I want to be respectful to these people because I don't understand what has happened here in Canada. But I'm trying to tell you that they have not explained to you the situation the way they should have. And I end up getting long-winded in a sense because there's so much that the public have been misguided and misinformed with. And I want to share and keep sharing. That's why we get invited to places to speak. It's because we understand the data. We look at the vaccine data today, the data out of the UK, Scotland, Sweden, Norway, Finland, all of the Nordic nations tell us, including Israel, that the double vaccinated person and the triple vaccinated person, particularly the triple vaccinated at age 50 and above, has a dramatic increased risk for infection. And now the data is also showing us a dramatic increased risk of hospitalization, and in some cases worse. So we know that these vaccines are a problem. So the problem then is, why would we mandate it? Why would companies in Canada continue mandating it when the data is out there that the vaccine does not cut transmission? And that's how I'm going to end this. So the public understands. If a vaccine is non-sterilizing, that means that it does not sterilize the virus. It does not confer the type of immunity where it eliminates the virus. It does not stop infection, replication, or transmission. Then that vaccine is dead. It's moot. It's garbage. These vaccines, based on what the manufacturer of them said, and based on what the FDA said, and based on what the CDC director, Rochelle Walensky, came on the news after the Barnstable, Massachusetts outbreak. She came on the news quickly to say, stop. All of you double vaccinated people, please put back on a mask. She basically admitted to the population that the vaccine no longer stopped infection or transmission. The vaccine failed, and this was in the Delta outbreak. The vaccine does not stop transmission. If a vaccine does not stop transmission, it has failed. If it does not stop transmission, there is no basis, absolutely none, for a vaccine mandate. Zero. And we knew this 8-9 months now. We've had vaccine mandates in place that had no sound scientific basis. There's no basis for passports. None. Zero. So that's where we are today. I support James because I understand these vaccines. The vaccines have failed. There should be no mandates. None. And I will end by saying that I'm very grateful. I would answer any questions anyone ever has. And I'm out there writing and stuff. My stuff is available. Take a look, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. That was why I wanted a qualified, competent professional to speak on the necessity for repealing mandates. And that, again, is part of the 3R equation, which is going to lead to what I believe some form of repair. I've come to this meeting. I asked you to be here because I want to have a constructive conversation with the way forward. What is the way forward? Over the course of this march, I've met thousands of people now. I've marched through your constituencies and your ridings, and I've listened to what they have to say. There's a lot of pain and suffering out there. There's a lot of folks who are unhappy. And but I've also met influential individuals like Paul, like Tom. We've encountered groups that have sprung up since the pandemic measures were put into place in 2020, and groups that have sprung up since January and February with the imposition of the Emergencies Act. So we have been in a unique position because I'm marching on the highway, and I'm accessible, and folks can come up and talk to me and ask me questions, or I can answer their questions, and we go forward with that. Which leads me to my next point. This project, what we're calling Canada Marches, is going to become something larger, and this is what I am bringing to you in a way of a constructive conversation. How can I help you get us out of this? So next slide. What I came to observe was that this presentation, again, I can make it available to you either electronically or in print. In talking with folks, like I said before, I've outlined what they think, and what I come to believe is that there is too much there's a concentration of power in one location, in one place. Too few hands, I should say. And then on the other side, we have the Canadian public, which is elevated, and they feel that they are not able to make their voices heard. You will see here a triangle which is labeled C3. So that is a fulcrum. Next slide. Which I am hoping that with a lever in place with the fulcrum at the proper distance, where is the better relationship we have with our federal government, and I'm going to elaborate on C3 in a minute, is going to allow citizens to restore some kind of balance. Next slide. So what is C3? C3 is going to be called the Canadian Citizens Coalition. And it is a three-structure shape, three-sided shape, and it's the shape of a triangle. On the one side, we have small and medium businesses. We have independent journalists and educators. And on the bottom, it's communities and partners. And what this gives us is something solid that allows us to use it as a fulcrum, as you saw on the previous slide. When I speak to these labels, you'll see how they support each other, and this is what I intend to do, or we intend to do, I should say, in we already have met a lot of communities. We have partners in place. Small and medium businesses are the ones that have supported me in some ways during this mission. And I think we will have more opportunities to meet independent journalists and educators who are going to contribute to this effort. Next slide. Our vision is to restore balance through focused education and citizen engagement. Our mission is to return Canada to a free, fair, and just society by restoring democratic, representative, and responsible civic and corporate government. Our goals are, in the short term, to inform, educate, and mobilize. And in the long term, it is reform and restore institutional responsibilities. And our values are respect, truth, compassion, and honor. So I see this organization being a institution that can reflect on true Canadian values, and that what we will do in the way that this march was conducted is set an example, lead by example. Next slide. So these are some of our partners. This is an ongoing process. We are meeting more and more people every day, both in communities and individuals. Next slide. So I'll play you a short video, and then I will speak to further activities on June the 30th, and then we'll close it down with a Q&A. Hello there, my name is James Topp.
My name is Dr. Laura Marie Braden.
I'm Dr. Lana Nickel, and I'm with Taking Back Our Freedom.
My name is Tom Morazzo.
I'm Terry Hagar.
My name is Clay Farnsworth.
I'm Kristen Nagel. I'm a nurse from London, Ontario that was terminated for speaking truth.
I'm Danny Bolford, Mounties for Freedom.
I am War Veteran Christopher Gregory Gearing.
My name is Ted Kuntz. I'm the president of Vaccine Choice Canada.
I founded an organization called Canada Marches. Right now, what we're doing is we're marching from Vancouver to Ottawa.
I'm with Taking Back Our Freedoms. I live on a small hobby farm in eastern PEI.
Mounties for Freedom. We investigate and analyze evidence and speak out against government violation of our Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
I live in Edmonton, Alberta. I'm here in my backyard.
I'm one of the board members from Police on Guard.
I am a proud member of Veterans for Freedom.
I'm a co-founder of Canadian Frontline Nurses.
I'm a member of the steering committee for an organization called Veterans for Freedom.
I'm a member of Police on Guard and the national coordinator for Mama Bears Project.
We decided to band together with some other organizations to create a organization called C3.
So excited to be a part of the Canadian Citizens Coalition.
We're providing a opportunity for folks to be a part of something because they know that there's something wrong in Canada.
You know, I want my kids to grow up in a free and democratic country where people come together and look out for each other with neighborly love.
We're glad to be a part of the Canada Marches Initiative and the C3.
We are part of C3 because we believe all Canadians should have a voice and be heard.
I believe a united freedom movement has the ability to correct the course that Canada is on for the future of our children.
We're so proud and honored to stand with James Topp and the Canadian Citizens Coalition.
We are part of the C3 group because we believe in the charter.
Veterans for Freedom has joined C3 because James Topp is one of our own.
And let's take back our freedoms with the Canadian Citizens Coalition.
United, we win. That's why taking back our freedoms is joining the Canadian Citizens Coalition.
United, we stand.
United we stand. United we stand.
United, we win.
United, we win.
United, we win.
United, we win.
United, we will win.
United, we win.
Why is this important? It is important because I believe that there needs to be a better cooperation between the Canadian public and our members of parliament at the federal government level and possibly in the future at the provincial level. There is a divide in this country unlike anything I've ever seen outside of a war zone. Earlier today, I was present at question period. One of the topics that was discussed frequently were gas prices, inflation. In addition to that, with this dissatisfaction that I'm seeing with the federal government, it disturbs me and I want to help fix it. Where we can help is with human resource mobilization. And I believe that the more Canadian citizens that become interested in this group will be able to educate them and direct them behind interests, groups, and parties that are going to help serve the Canadian people. So this is not a politically aligned organization. This is not a union. It's not a lobby. It's not a political action committee. It's a chimera of those things. It is probably a new type of organization that has arisen because of this unique situation we find ourselves in. So we are going forward with the building of this coalition. And it's something that I would like to participate in further discussion with as many members of parliament, regardless of the party that they belong to, in how we can work together to bring about redirecting our society back to where it should be. So again, I'm going to reiterate why I think it's important because of the divide I'm seeing. When I was in Croatia in 1993, I saw internal conflict that nobody saw coming. If you're not familiar with Croatia, it used to be a province of what was called Yugoslavia. So nobody there saw a conflict coming, but when it happened so fast, it took everybody by surprise. And I am telling you this because I remember as a young man walking through walking through this war zone and all of its attendant destruction. I remember that it must have happened. I remember walking past a building that had been fairly severely damaged by gunfire and artillery, looking in through a wall and seeing a dinner set out for a family. So this happened so fast that this family was sitting down to eat that they had to get up, leave everything, and run to the hills for survival. So this is not the kind of scenario I want to see play out here. And this is why I believe the Canadian Citizens Coalition going forward is important. Want to add anything?
This is the second session today, and we are not we've stated we're not politically aligned to any specific party, but we are very aware of which members of parliament from which party have actually attended today. So we have recognized that. And if you noticed on the chart, the types of groups that have come together to form this C3, they are incredibly professional, well-informed, well-credentialed groups. And we feel strongly enough that we cannot sit on the sideline and just allow things to unfold as they have been. And myself, I did, like stated in the beginning, I played a very minor role in the Freedom Convoy here in January, February, and I became involved with James Topp's Canada Marches. We exist out of the direction that this government has taken this country. And I have publicly said this because I was campaigning myself, that the convoy and Canada Marches are the People's Emergency Act. This is why we exist. These are the people from your constituencies of all parties. We have several supporters. We get constant feedback on social media, not mainstream media. You guys, I think, fully understand the impact that mainstream media has. But through social media, we have constant contact through our supporters. And it is our belief that we're into approximately 1 million supporters just through a combined total of all of our organizations. And that number is growing consistently. We want to work with the federal government. We want to, like James illustrated, get the balance back in this country, because we talk to the public, as I know you do, you talk to your constituents, but the public has lost faith. And if you look at the last Ontario, the election results, 43% of eligible voters voted in this election on the, in this province. 43%. That's it. 57% of the eligible voters did not engage in the political process because they felt they were hopeless. And when I was here in Ottawa in January, February, the consistent message that I got every day, and Danny can back me up on this, and anybody who participated in the convoy, and as well with Canada Marches, when they see us, when they talk to us, they cry in our arms. Grown men, grown women, children. We hear the horror stories. We hear the carnage. And the one thing that we always hear is that people say to us, until you came along, this is the first time in over 2 years I've been proud to be a Canadian. And this is really hard for us because we bear the brunt. We take on that responsibility. And we all have, most of us have children. Most of us have a clear purpose why we're doing this. We're not doing it for ourselves. We are actually, in fact, doing it for other people and for the public and the country that we have all lived in and served. And we often speak to Eastern European immigrants that have come here. They actually come and approach us, and they are screaming at us that the parallels that they are experiencing are between what happened in their countries that they immigrated from to come to Canada. I personally know of 6 families that have gone back to Poland after escaping Poland in the 80s. This is really happening, and I think most of you are aware of that. We want to be a partner with every level of government to repair what is going on before it gets completely out of control. And the last thing is, if you've noticed all of these grassroots movements that have come up, if you've noticed, many of them have the word freedom back in their titles. These signs that people hold up when we go to rallies, it's freedom. I'm really happy to see that the Conservative Party has been fighting so hard against Bill C-11 because, obviously that impacts all of our lives. We're talking about communicating with each other. We're talking about open transparency. We can't have that when we have a government that takes this away from the public and has censorship. We want to work with every level of government in this country that will tell the truth and will fight for Canadians like we have all been. And we have lost trust in the legacy media. We don't want to talk to them. We have actively participated in independent or social media because we just don't feel that the taxpayers should be lied to by a media organization that they pay for. And so we are becoming creative. We're actively meeting. We consistently meet in several groups every online meetings regularly to figure out how we can help restore the politics, not the country. We're looking at getting the politics under control. We can be an instrument to repair this country, both with the citizens and in the political process, legally, fairly, and responsibly. We are a group that are here to help, but ultimately we are the voice of Canadians. We really are. We are the constituents. And we're coming to the federal government and we are begging to get back on track and make this, the Canada that used to be glorious and free. With that, I do want to thank the members that did have the courage to attend these meetings today, because I can't help but notice that none of the other political parties in the federal government have shown their face in this room the entire time. So with that, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. So, last slide. I'll sum this up. I know you have busy schedules, you got things to do. This is a message going out, and I'm hoping that we can begin helping each other. And I'm asking you, please, if you have contacts within the provincial municipal governments, to communicate to them that the end of this march is approaching on June the 30th. I'm going to arrive here in Ottawa on foot. I'm going to march up to the War Memorial and put my hand on the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. This event on the 30th of June, I have been informed by a lot of folks who have been watching this since I left Vancouver that they wish to meet me here in Ottawa. And they are Canadian citizens visiting Ottawa. This is not an occupation. This is the celebration of the end of the protest march. So I want to make that perfectly clear. I made it clear this morning. I'm putting it out there again because I know that there is various framing and biasing going on within the media community, or certain avenues of it anyway, to present this as some sort of disruption to the lives of the people in Ottawa. I want to put a stop to that rumor right here and now. So if you can help me with that, it would be greatly appreciated. This is going to be a reunion as well for everybody who I've met along the way, and it's going to be a reunion for a number of veterans who have supported me on this march, and I am looking forward to seeing them. I do not want to have any interruptions to anybody's lives here. However, this is a journey that was commenced on. I told people I was going to march into Ottawa, and that's what I'm going to do. So I would like to partner with the Ottawa Police Services and the OPP, and hopefully they will facilitate the march into the city with assisting with crowd management and travel through various intersections, and we can get on with marching up, having a celebration at the War Memorial and remembering the veterans who sacrificed and gave everything they had to see this country become free and democratic and fight for those principles. So that is what's going on the 30th of June. And please, if you can relay that message, it would be greatly appreciated. I also want to put a stop to other rumors right now regarding various summer activities, because again, this is, I see this as being misrepresented information by various media parties to kind of present these, what's going to happen on Canada Day is that I think that many Canadians are going to celebrate Canada Day. We're going to celebrate Canada Day here in Ottawa. We'll probably join them as well as the members of my team. That is what's happening on Canada Day. That's all that's happening on Canada Day. And with regard to the remainder of the summer activities and into the fall, I'm hoping that we can have this conversation with representatives from our federal government, with officials, with anybody else who wishes to restore the balance that is required going forward. Do you want to add anything else, Paul?
I don't want to take too much time. I guess I just want to say thank you very much to James and Tom and everyone here, Christian, etc. I think the most important point, people like Danny Beaufort, and the gracious MP for allowing us here. The most important point, which is what Canadians need to understand, is this. The vaccines have been predicated on the fact that they stop transmission. And I have to come back to that point. What our health officials knew is staggering, and when they knew it, and I want to remind you this, if you didn't know, I'll share it once here. We had a study around the mid of 2021 out of Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. And that study in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam was an eye-opening seminal study that informed the global community, particularly the United States, Britain, etc., that basically told us at that point, middle of 2021, that the vaccine was already failing. We had nurses in a healthcare facility in Ho Chi Minh. I think it was about 17 nurses. This was published in the Lancet. It's by Chow et al. I know these things because I deal with the science every day. And those nurses were locked down for 2 weeks because there was a Delta outbreak then. The predominant variant was Delta. Omicron had not emerged yet. And what did that study show us? In around the middle of 2021, before even the fall, it was staggering. It showed us about 4 things. That small study showed us, 1, all of the nurses were double vaccinated and they all became infected. That opened our eyes instantly that the vaccine was not stopping replication or transmission. Our public health officials in Canada knew that then, federal, provincial, city level. They knew that the vaccine mandates had no scientific basis. That study showed us a second thing. All of the nurses in that study were PPE'd, full masks, full visors, full gowns. It showed us clearly that PPE in a hospital setting doesn't work. That study supported one by Shitrit in Israel, showed that PPE in the hospital setting failed, and nosocomial outbreak. It was supported by one by Hatimaki in Finland, also showed us nurses' PPE, full masks, full gowns, fail, does not prevent transmission. That Ho Chi Minh study showed us a third thing. It showed us that double vaccinated nurses harbored massive amounts of virus in the nasopharyngeal passage, in the oral cavity, in the nostrils. It staggered us. It showed us that the vaccinated nurse and the unvaccinated nurse from an earlier outbreak with a different variant, the vaccinated nurse was far more infected. Our public health officials in Health Canada, in fact, knew that. They knew no mandate had any scientific basis. That is why the head epidemiologist at FAC can go on record saying we have no data to support the mandate. And that study showed us a fourth thing, which was even more frightening. We detected 251 times viral load in the nasopharyngeal passage of the vaccinated nurse than the unvaccinated nurse. It showed us that you, as someone in a hospital setting being cared for by a vaccinated nurse, then with Omicron is even worse. You were at greater risk of becoming infected from a vaccinated nurse than an unvaccinated nurse. And I'll close by telling you something that our public health officials here did. We never got this information, so I came to talk about different things, but it's key that you understand. When they came to you and told you Canadians that this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated, they misled you and they deceived you because it happened in America. CDC did it, so we followed here. What they did was this. They redefined what being vaccinated was. They told you that for that 14, 15-day period post-shot, you were still unvaccinated. And that was the key. Why did they do you that? So that the public health officials in Canada could come to you in the media and deceive the public and tell you that this was a pandemic of the unvaccinated. That was a falsehood, a gross falsehood. They were taking the vaccinated people who were becoming infected and hospitalized, and they were placing their events in the unvaccinated bucket just by a simple change in the definition. That is why somebody like me came today, so that I make sure that I share some information you didn't have. So when the media told you that we need to get all you vaccinated people, you unvaccinated people vaccinated, the public health officials at Health Canada, in fact, knew it was a lie. I am telling you, they knew it was a falsehood. I will go as far as saying a lie, because they took all of the events and put it in the unvaccinated bucket. So you, the public, said, oh my God, all these vaccinated people are getting infected and hospitalized. I have to run and get a vaccine. You didn't understand that, no, those people were literally vaccinated. But FAC and Health Canada and CDC and FDA and NIH and NIAID and SAGE in England just tweaked the definition and told you, even at 8 days post-vaccine, you are not vaccinated. So even if you died from the vaccine, you were counted as an unvaccinated. And that particular fact doomed the information that you were getting. You needed to be properly informed, and you were never. The Canadian public never had the balanced, open, explicit, transparent, evidence-based medicine information it needed to make proper informed decisions. That's what we've been facing. So when James goes to march for all these miles, it's not because James doesn't have anything to do. It's because James understood the science too. And James understood something was wrong. And James understood that you can't be forcing our federal workers and our military and our police and our great nurses to be vaccinated by force when the data is problematic. The data cannot be substantiated. There was no sound justification for any of these vaccine mandates. And I'll go on record saying it. I will challenge anyone in the Public Health Agency of Canada. I will challenge Dr. Howard New. I will challenge Dr. Theresa Tam openly here to this legacy media. You meet me any place, anytime. You bring any of the data you have, any science. You bring the entire Public Health Agency of Canada and Health Canada to me. Meet me anywhere in Ottawa. Anyone in the provincial government or the city, come and bring your data. I will show you the global data that you did not inform the Canadian people about. You've been misleading them and you hurt people. So yes, we need a conversation. This must end. The vaccine mandates have no basis, and the emergency powers that you use to underpin them must be dropped, because there's no sound justification for this anymore. Thank you.
Questions? And that pretty much it. I want to again thank you for coming out. It means a lot to me. This was encouraging. Thank you. You have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So you mentioned you want to do this legally. I'm wondering if you have legal counsel. Where is it? I don't see it here today. And if your legal counsel was here, what I would ask is if he or she is aware that when Sergeant Mike Kipling's superiors ordered him back before 2000 to take the vaccine without his informed consent, they infringed upon the serviceman's right to life, liberty, security of person as enshrined in the charter, the judge ruled. And it was supposed to be a precedent-setting decision, and I'm just wondering why this precedent has not been referred to, in that in this case, it was about an experimental or new anthrax vaccine. So we're repeating history and under the same circumstances and was found to be wrong in 2000.
I can take that one. I think that works. I was aware of that particular case myself. And in the very early days of the vaccine mandates that were being sent to the federal government, I had that case law and I had people review it. And just for its accuracy, the issue with Sergeant Kipling is that he did voluntarily retire beforehand, but you cannot escape court-martial by releasing from the military. And he was brought back by as a civilian for that court-martial, and he did have a civilian lawyer that represented him. And to be perfectly honest, the reason we were sending that out to all of our members of the Canadian military, because at the time Veterans for Freedom didn't exist, but I was a member of Police on Guard, we were sharing that information with as many veteran or actively serving military as we can find that wanted that information. And we were trying to support them to write members or write memos to their chain of command to say, we have a precedent-setting case within the Canadian military. The challenge there is, it's the Canadian military has its own legal system, which is a little bit separate from the traditional, criminal code of Canada. For a court-martial, you're not going to court-martial a civilian, but you're going to court-martial a military member. So this particular issue, there was a lot of us that were actually very, not excited, but we were putting a lot of hopes into this particular precedent. I have not seen yet one case of a military member get court-martialed. So this has not been referred to in a court-martial as a precedent or any other case law that I'm aware of. So that's the tricky piece, is that to my knowledge, nobody has been court-martialed for refusing to get the vaccination, so they can't pull this off the shelf and say, we've got a precedent. It's not usable at this point until there's a court-martial, then they can pull it off the shelf and say, we already have a case, which is unfortunate. Nobody wants to be the Canadian Forces member who takes the court-martial or is charged, and then has to go through all this just to defend themselves and cost, thousands and thousands of dollars in legal fees. But we were always aware that this case did exist. And yet we've had no opportunity to use it because the military has not laid any charges against anyone that I'm aware of for refusing to get this. They've gone straight from, you're not going to take it, fine, you're going to be released 5F from the Canadian military. You're just gone, we're firing you. And that's what they've done. There's been no due process for those members. They have all tried for religious exemption or other exemptions. I think there's less than 160 Canadian Forces members that were given an exemption. But to my knowledge, there's almost 1,000 Canadian Forces members right now that have been 5F'd or released from the military at a cost of almost $800 million in training, taxpayer-funded training to those 1,000 members. I know of a helicopter pilot had 4 years left to retirement. He no longer has a pension, benefits, or any of the service. He was 4 years away from retirement. Now he has nothing for him and his family. And he has served his country honorably for 21 years. What I personally take objection with is the fact that these mandates, like Paul says, have no scientific basis. They have no legal basis as far as I can tell, and I am not a lawyer, so let that be clear. But they have denied Canadian citizens the right to serve their country for something that has not yet been approved by Health Canada. And this is the important thing. I'm not a doctor also, but it is still under an interim order. And every 30 days, that interim order is rubber stamped and pushed through for another 30 days. These clinical trials do not end for, more than another year and a half. These are on the interim order, so they have not been approved. So when you look at overall informed consent, you as the soldier have to be informed and then give your consent. And this is the same thing for any citizen of this country. It's actually criminal assault if you look it up in the criminal code, that you cannot coerce somebody into undergoing a medical procedure against their will. And we're using financial, economic coercion to get somebody to take a medical experiment they don't want in their body. in the military is doing it as well. But it violates the law. And I'm pretty sure all the lawyers in the room, they probably realize, you know, first year law students probably know that informed consent would be something really easy to look up and pick that one apart. How we've gotten this far in society is beyond me, other than the fact that a lot of these cases have not yet made it through the court system. That's a big problem.
Thank you all. Thank you for your service. You're all gentlemen who have been of service in your lives. So I appreciate meeting you today. You have said, and I appreciate that as well, that conservatives have been fighting against the federal mandates, and we've been doing it pretty much every day and not winning those votes, not winning those motions, but we continue to fight for it. Right now, we have seen, because of chaos at airports and embarrassment to the government, that they have lifted some of the mandates. But they have been very clear in the last couple of weeks that this is only a pause. It's a suspension. It isn't an actual lifting. And we have here within the parliamentary precinct, even though the government of Ontario and the municipal government in Ottawa has lifted vaccine mandates and the need to wear masks for some time now, as soon as we get to the door of Parliament, literally to the door of West Block, we have been forced to, well, first of all, you can't get in without a vaccine proof, and secondly, wear the masks. We're being told that the reason that they will not do anything more than suspend as a moment is because they're expecting some variant to come up from South America in the fall. That's what we're hearing. And yet we're hearing today that there is evidence from around the world that even those who are vaccinated, double vaccinated, and even beyond, certainly are not immune to transmissibility, and that we're being somehow put in a suspended state for a variant that may or may not arrive here, that we do not know if it will arrive at all. And we don't know that if it does arrive, that it will be a threat to health. And we, as I understand it, are, even though a pandemic was stated, that we're no longer in a pandemic phase. If anything, we're in an endemic phase. So I'm just wondering about your comments on that, because you are amplifying our voices. We're trying to amplify your voices. We're being told that science is being followed, but we're not told who those scientists are. We're not given the scientific data, but that is the answer to us. And many of us do not accept that response.
Do I take it?
Go ahead if you want.
Could you hear me?
Yes.
So I'll just, I will be as brief as I can. There is no science, and I will say it slowly and as clearly as possible. There is no science or data or evidence anywhere in the world, anywhere, not in Canada, not in America, to support the vaccine mandates. Moreover, people in Canada in public health, immunology, vaccinology, virology, they understand something that the public is not being explained. And we don't want to get into the complexity, but I'll be as simple as I can. The virus as it exists today, the BA4, BA5 subvariant, it is because of the vaccine policy. It's the vaccination of the population with this particular vaccine, because the vaccine is what we call a non-neutralizing vaccine at this point. It cannot eliminate the virus. Cannot, period. Nu knows this, Tam knows this, everyone knows this. They're not telling the public the truth. The vaccine antibodies cannot see the Omicron spike, which is the target antigen. The more you vaccinate, you mass vaccinate a population, the more pressure, selection pressure we call it, you're placing on the spike. The spike, there will be further infectious variants. In other words, when they tell you that we are not going to remove the emergency powers, it's because they understand that the more they keep the vaccine policy going program with these failed vaccines, the more they're going to drive those infectious variants to emerge. And that's the issue. The issue is it's the vaccine. It's not the virus. The virus has no intrinsic property to make it more infectious. This virus cannot. The vaccine itself is pressuring the spike and driving natural selection to select for more infectious variants that will come approximately every 2 months. They understand that. They understand it so well that if you keep, I said it earlier, if you keep vaccinating this population with these particular, I have to say with these particular vaccines, you see, had the government brought for us, had Pfizer and Moderna brought for us, I was on record, even where I worked before, saying none of these vaccines. We had early treatment, we had vitamin D, we knew how to strongly protect the vulnerable and deal with this. But let's pretend, had Pfizer and Moderna brought for us what we call a sterilizing vaccine that completely eliminated the virus and worked, we would not be having this discussion today. The vaccine would eliminate the virus. Whether we needed it or not, we never needed it, but let's say we needed it or even did it. But the vaccine that they brought is what is known in the immunological circles. Nu knows this and Tam knows this. It's a non-neutralizing, non-sterilizing vaccine. It cannot stop infection and cannot stop transmission. That means it does not work. So they know this is not a vaccine that is working. They're administering to the population a vaccine. I'm going on record here. I know where I'm speaking also. They're administering a vaccine that does not work, cannot work, period. And they want to take this vaccine and vaccinate your children. It cannot work and will not work, and it skews to harm. And that's the key. Had this vaccine been working, it would have done its job, whether we needed it for this particular virus. But we have a vaccine on deck that does not work. And if you keep vaccinating with a vaccine that is non-sterilizing, that does not neutralize the virus's spike, you are going to place what we call suboptimal immune pressure on the spike. When you place suboptimal pressure on the spike during mass vaccination of a population where there's constant infectious pressure, remember the virus is circulating. Whether it's a mild variant at this point, the virus is putting pressure on the population. It's trying to infect the population while we are mounting suboptimal immune pressure on it. That suboptimal immune pressure is not enough to eliminate the virus. It pokes the virus. It provokes it. The virus responds. There is going to be more infectious variants that will overcome that suboptimal pressure and drive more infectious variants. In other words, I said earlier in the first session, if we want this pandemic to keep going for 100 more years, with infectious variant after infectious variant every 2 months, be it 6, be it 10, be it 12, Omicron subvariants, we keep this vaccine going exactly the way it is. We don't stop this vaccine program. We just keep rolling it out exactly this way. It will never end. And the thing is, these people know this.
The other, I'd like to kind of add to that. I don't know if this is working. Lieutenant Colonel David Redman used to work in Alberta for Emergency Management Alberta. I've been in contact with him. I have all this correspondence. I'm fully aware in Ontario, we have Emergency Management Ontario. From a provincial government level, right across every province in this country, this entire thing was handled disgustingly wrong. And one of the things that we know is that trying to achieve COVID-0 was a fool's errand. And again, I'm not the doctor here, but when we're talking about doing operational planning or pandemic response planning, and I'm very familiar with planning, we tried to achieve COVID zero, which was always unattainable. So I'm getting outside my lane here, but what I want to come back to is the fact that the media played a phenomenal role in this. The only way that Theresa Tam and any other public health official that has been driving this agenda, the only way they can push this out to everybody is through the media. The media is their government-funded voice. And I know the troubles that you have had with Bill C-11, which is why there's an attack right now, in our view, on independent media and social media. It's because of these very reasons. They control the mainstream narrative. We sat here today and the mainstream media was in this room and they were, as we were sitting here speaking, were lighting us up. It was vicious today. And social media is the way we're trying to get the word out, but we're being blocked by that, right? You're seeing Twitter accounts being frozen. You're seeing YouTube stuff. If this is streamed on YouTube, I'm sure it won't make it till midnight. I'm sure it's probably been pulled down from YouTube today because we're using, this side of the argument. And so, I would almost make the case the biggest virus that's going on right now has got to be the mainstream media and its disrespect for the Canadian public and the lies that they have constantly said about us. And it's unfortunate. It's very disrespectful. And we have all been victimized by the fact that we are not getting all the full information, which is what Paul was talking about. We don't know the risks. And when I go back to informed consent, how can we be informed when we're not allowed to know the information? And that is coming out of the media. They are refusing to allow any opposing narrative that the public is being told. In the name of what? I have no idea. But the public is ill-informed. And that is a direct messaging coming from the mainstream media in this country.
Okay, so get back to the Q&A. Unless anybody has any burning questions, once again, I want to thank you for your time and your attention. And by all means, if you are in the area and would like to attend on 30th, sorry, go ahead, Dean. Okay. Yes, sir.
After, we're gonna take questions from the press after, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, just 1 second. So we'll wrap this up. I thank you guys for your time, and once again, if you'd like to do anything on 30th of June, then look forward to seeing you.
Hi, everyone. So let me just wait. This is not the stream. Where am I looking? Okay, you know what? It's on the crappy camera. Okay, so I think that's it. Can you hear me all? And can you see me? Can you all see me? I got to remember to look at the right camera. James was talking about potentially getting him on, coming on the stream tonight early, the sidebar with Armchair Warrior. It looks like it's going to be too tight to make it happen now, but we'll see if we can do it. Is it this mic? Oh, yeah. Is it the good mic or the bad mic? Did they say which MPs? Yeah, let's see this. Thank you. That one is, that's the one. Thank you. Okay. I need to change shirts before tonight's stream. Been sitting squat in the basement. Oh, okay. So I'm going to take them out. They're done. Stop screen. I don't know which MPs showed up. They showed a few faces. I don't think anybody has the production value to add the little captions as to who the names are. Tom might keep looking at the wrong camera. We're here. Tom might come on early. I might go live early tonight for the sidebar if Tom can make it. It sounded like they were going to do a Q&A with the media, so it might be too tight. So may not happen. And just to let everybody know why, I was supposed to go down to Ottawa today to be in that room to live stream this. But I'm not accredited. I'm not media. And I understand why the politicians didn't want, people who might look like me from off the street live streaming this broadcast. So I decided I was going to, go down and maybe interview Tom in between meetings and said, no, it's not going to work. So I stayed here, restreamed this, which was the second of two meetings that Tom Marazzo, who was the last guy speaking, James Topp, Dr. Paul gave today. And I didn't want to live commentate over it because it was not about me or my sense of humor trying to make insufferable January 6 hearings tolerable. So that's it. So you've seen it. And despite Tom's cynicism, Tom Marazzo saying, we'll be lucky if this is up on YouTube by midnight. This was briefly demonetized, requested manual review, and it has been remonetized as of now. So this should stay up. Live from the Shed did the earlier Restream today with some commentary. His is still up and still good, so that's it. Thank you very much. Viva is 100% Canadian, yes, but look, that's susceptible of evolution over time. Are they speaking tomorrow? So now CanadaMarches.ca is where you're going to find all the information. They have 2 days of events planned, but from what I understand, let me see if I got a text message. I have not. James Topp is now going to be driven back out to where he left off with his march, and it's going to continue on. And they have events tomorrow and the day after. I might try to make it down, but I will be dealing with 3 kids out of school and not in camp as of tomorrow. So we'll see what happens. Thank you, Viva and wife, for being where we need you. I would have been there today, but it wouldn't have worked out. And driving 4 hours for a 5-minute interview, which would be stressed and not ideal. So that was the rebroadcast, Restream of James Topp's second meeting with Canadian MPs. Apparently earlier today, some MPs left during the meeting. I can see someone being, oh, what do I hear? I hear something in the background. I hear something in the background. Let's see what this is.
I like to screwy.
Yeah, so I don't think James Topp is going to make it for a 6:30. Jeez. And you know what? I'm taking this out only because I want to avoid music problems. Okay, I'm going to link this. Everyone should continue. Go watch this afterwards. Here, boom. I want to avoid music issues. Music copyright trolls seems to be the most effective way to stifle streaming. Thanks for the info, Viva. I've found it difficult to stay on top. Yeah, and with my audience, it's a tough thing. Not everybody's as interested in what James Topp is doing. I've got a big American base, but that has never been the determining factor for anything that I cover. It's just that not everyone. First of all, restreaming someone else's live stream makes me feel extremely uncomfortable. I feel naked. I don't know what they're going to say. I have no quality control. I only have the button off control. So you are at the mercy of what other people are doing on their stream when you restream. I don't like doing it, but I wanted to get this out there. And second thing, I forgot what the second thing is. Sex bots in the house. Where are they? Where? Oh, here you go. What is up with your XYZ? Good night, sex bot. You have just been, there's a joke in here. There's a joke in here somewhere. You've been flushed. They suits snuck out when talking started. Coward. So that's what I understood. I can see people not liking the way Dr. Paul talks. He doesn't mince words. Nor should a person who knows what they're talking about and outraged by what they perceive to be totally unscientific conduct, nor should they mince their words. Can you imagine? Look, I know the credential. I don't know Dr. Theresa Tam's credentials. I have heard Dr. Paul's credentials. I'd rather see Dr. Paul as the Chief Medical Officer of Canada over Dr. Tam. I think he's a little bit more credible. I think he makes a little more sense. I think he seems to be scientifically more accurate. He's very direct, and his accent is not bad either. It's a good accent. It's like a British variant. It's oh my God. Anyway, so meanwhile, I'm going to end this. I'm going to go get ready for the next stream. Hold on, Viva, you're too good to me, bro. Yeah, I got to go get ready for the next stream. I'm going to take these off. I don't even know if I'm which mic I'm in. I don't think I'm in the good mic. Okay, so it does not look like James is going to be able to get on early. If he's available 15 minutes early, I'll get him on early. But go back to the main Viva Fry channel, Armchair Warrior. Geopolitics on the menu for tonight, and I've been told the chat might be wild. What else was I going to say? No, I know his accent is Jamaican, but I believe also the Jamaican accent is influenced by the British of origin. But it's a good accent. I mean, but more important than accent and more important than being direct is substance. And substantively speaking, I cannot veer out of my lane of expertise. Okay. What else was there? Snip, clip, and share. This was not even my stream to begin with, so take it and share it far and wide. Cut it into clips, share it on social media. CanadaMarches.ca, James Topp. Tom Marazzo was the last guy you saw talking. He's running for office. I had him on for a live stream. Amazingly fantastic, intelligent, well-spoken person. James Topp, I had him on. He's been on now, if not 3 times, definitely 2. Haven't had Dr. Paul on. Might want to do that a little Rumbles exclusive so we can actually have a meaningful medical discussion about the. Wow, they're in full. Look at this. Okay, you know you've made it on the interwebs. Holy cow! No, this is like they're spreading like a virus. Okay, I think that would. My goodness, and they're getting increasingly crass in their spamming. Okay, get out of there. Yeah, very disappointed. Some MPs left, some wearing masks. Okay, stay tuned. Tune into my mainstream. I'm going to have a good intro. I'm looking at the wrong camera. I'm going to have a good intro rant today. 2 disheartening experiences in one day. So that's it. That was James Topp's. This was the same type of meeting they had earlier today. So if you missed the first one, you can go watch it on Live from the Shed. Had a restream. James Topp, his channel, live streamed it. Same substance from what I surmised. I watched enough of the earlier one. Yeah, I would call it lice. It's got lice. That's it. Go. I will see you in no more than 41 minutes. Main channel. And everyone clip, snip, and share. And see you soon, peeps. This is the first live stream on Viva Clips. We're going to make use of this feature now that I've linked StreamYard into it. I don't even know what mic. Is this mic even on? Whatever, you've heard me. So see you all in 40 minutes on the main Viva Fry, Robert Barnes Armchair Warrior. It's going to be awesome. See you all soon, peeps.